When life knocks you down, will you rise again or will you give up? When failure comes knocking and hope seems nowhere in sight, that is when a person learns that true success is not found in reaching the destination, but in having the courage to stand up again. Failure surrounded him from every side, yet he had not lost the power of hope. A small shop, a big dream, and countless struggles. Watch how determination turns hardship into success. Every failure is preparation for a comeback. This is the story of a man who never gave up. He asked himself, when everything seems to be over, can hope still win? Stay with me until the end, because it's possible that one single hope could change your entire life. This is the story of a man who lived in a small town. At the edge of that town stood an old yet beautiful wooden shop. Its color had slowly faded with time, but hanging on its door was a small handcrafted sign that still shone in the light. It read, "David's Shop Service from the Heart." Outside the shop was a small garden of potted plants, where colorful flowers bloomed every morning. The people of the town often gathered in front of the shop in the early hours, sitting together, chatting, and starting their day with the shopkeeper. David was a 50-year-old man whose hair had begun to turn white, and the lines of time were clearly visible on his face. He was a shopkeeper, but not just a seller of goods. He was a friend to every customer, a guide, and sometimes a father-like mentor. Everything in David's shop was neatly arranged. Old, worn-out shopping baskets, a few books, handmade clay pots, and some well-known spices. Each item told a story of his love and hard work. William was a 25-year-old young man with dreams in his eyes but empty hands. He had returned from the city to the town, exhausted and disappointed after failing to find a job. William's clothes were simple yet clean, and within him lived a quiet sense of hope. He always tried to hide what was in his heart, but in front of David, he failed to hide his pain and fear. It was a cold morning. Soft sunlight fell upon the houses of the town, and the air was fresh, carrying the scent of soil. David was sitting outside his shop, sorting fresh flowers, when suddenly a young man appeared at the door of the shop. There was exhaustion and disappointment on William's face. His eyes were fixed on the ground, and his hands were pressed deep into his pockets. As soon as he stepped into the shop, he said in a soft voice, "Do you have any advice or help you could offer?" David smiled and replied, "My son, welcome to the shop. Not everything offers help, but from the heart, guidance can be found in everything. Tell me, what is it that you are looking for?" William remained silent for a moment, then tried to speak. I'm looking for a job. I failed in the city, and now I don't know what to do next." David nodded and said, "My son, this is nothing new. Everyone faces defeat at some point in life, but sitting in a shop is not just about mourning failures. It's also about learning how to look for solutions." A faint light appeared in William's eyes, though deep inside, he still felt very weak. David walked to the back corner of the shop, brought out a small book stand and said, "Look at these books. In every one of them, someone has overcome the struggles of life. You can find the light for your own path within these pages as well." William picked up the books and began to look around the shop carefully. He felt that this place was not just a shop, but a small world of its own, where everything told a story, where every book, every pot, every neatly placed tool offered a lesson. David said softly, "My son, life is like a shop such as this one. Sometimes things are not in order, sometimes you have to wait. But the person who observes everything with patience and hard work eventually finds the light of their dream." William placed the books in his lap and said with a faint smile, "Thank you. I have never heard this from a shopkeeper before. Everyone else is only busy selling things." David laughed warmly and replied, "My son, I sell goods, but I also sell lessons. Any lesson that is gained is valuable, and you have the ability within you to put these lessons into practice in your own life." William nodded deeply, and for the first time, he felt that perhaps this shop and this man could be a life-changing moment for him. William bought the books from the shop, but there was a heavy weight in his heart. He knew that these books alone would not bring him a miracle. Failure in the city had broken him from within, and now, having returned to the town, he stood uncertain about his future. Sitting outside the shop, he began to open the books, but on every page he felt helpless in the face of his problems. He had no job, no skills, and no guidance. A voice echoed again and again in his heart, "You are a failure. Nothing will ever come of you." Meanwhile, David noticed the clouds of despair on William's face. He quietly sat beside him and said, "My son, it feels to you as if everything is over, doesn't it? But sometimes what seems like the biggest problem ends up teaching us the greatest lesson. Tell me, what is your biggest worry?" William sighed and said, "I tried everywhere in the city, but I couldn't find a place anywhere. Even now, coming here, I don't know what to do. I can't do anything, and I don't see any path forward." David remained silent for a moment, then said, "My son, the problem is that you are only looking at the result. You have never tried to see the path. Often, people fail to recognize their own potential because of their failures. The hope within you is still alive. You just haven't been able to see it yet." William nodded, but inside he still felt restless. His mind was full of questions. Can I really do something? Is there any opportunity left in my life? What if I fail again? At that moment, David brought out a small old drawer from the back corner of the shop. Inside were tiny notes and scraps of paper. David handed one to William and said, "These are a few principles from my own experience. Each of these has supported me during difficult times in life. You may not understand them fully right now, but if you want, they can become a light for you." William opened the note and it read, "Hard work, patience, small steps, and learning from every failure." He stared at it for a while. A faint, strange light awakened in his heart, but alongside it was fear. He knew that learning all this would not be easy. He would have to fight his shame, his disappointment, and his loneliness. This was the first moment William truly faced reality. Success does not come from a single day of work or sudden luck. He would have to strive day and night, overcome the fears and shame within himself, and most importantly, learn to rise again. David said softly, "My son, the first difficulty in life is always the most deceptive. It makes you feel weak, but the person who faces it moves forward." William kept the books close and silently promised himself, "I will not give up. No matter how hard the path, I will reach my destination." This was a small but crucial turning point for William. Carrying the notes and books from the shop, he stepped into his room, but inside his restlessness and anxiety remained. He knew that just reading the principles would not change anything. He had to put them into action. But where would he find the courage to act? Every morning, he would come to the shop, talk to David, and seek some advice. But when he returned home and faced his reality, a heavy weight pressed down on his heart. Failures in the city, the expectations of his family, and his limited abilities all came crashing down on him at once. William's emotions were like a storm. Every failure had exhausted him from within. A fear was growing in his heart that perhaps he might never succeed. The townspeople could laugh at him because he had returned without achieving anything. He had no friends in the city, and in the village, he felt out of place. He was alone while everyone else was busy with their work. One day, David noticed that William was sitting in the shop, silent and sorrowful. He gently asked, "My son, why are you so quiet? Is there a burden hidden in your eyes?" William lowered his head and after a moment said softly, "I feel like a failure. Failure in every attempt, defeat in every dream. I can't trust myself. Sometimes I think, if I fail, everything will be over." David took a deep breath and said, "My son, all these feelings are natural. Fear, despair, and loneliness come to every human being. The difference is that some people drown in these emotions while others turn them into strength. You must create that strength within yourself now." William nodded, but inside a storm of questions still raged. He knew that just listening to advice wouldn't solve anything. He would have to act, and obstacles would arise with every step. William decided to start a small business in the town. Even if it was tiny, he would do something on his own. David offered him some old supplies, but even that came with a warning. "My son, this work will not be easy. Every day will test your patience, effort, and courage. If you are ready, take it. If not, wait, because without trying, no result comes." William accepted the supplies with a faint smile, but anxiety still lingered in his heart. In the first few days, everything turned into a struggle. Prices of materials rose, and he had little money. The townspeople looked at him with suspicion. Fear grew inside him, worried that he might fail again. One day while working, William sat down exhausted and disheartened. His hands were injured, his impatience growing, and tears filled his eyes. At that moment he thought, "Can I really do this? After all this effort, will I ever succeed?"